Hey everybody, Chris the Cop. Well, we're finally going to do our first movie critique. So we've done some gaming, we've done some unboxing, and now we're finally going to do that movie critique. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about the 2003 motion picture SWAT starring Samuel L. Jackson and Colin Farrell. What did they get right and what did they get wrong? Well, at least on my perspective, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, before we jump into this, let me give my disclaimer. I understand this is a movie, as well as this is Hollywood. But some of you have asked me, hey, do you mind taking a look at the movie SWAT and giving your perspective on what they got right and what they got wrong? That's what we're going to do. I actually like the movie. It's not a bad movie, it's just unrealistic. SWAT, the movie, pays homage to the 1970s television show. When the 1970s television show came out, many people had never heard of SWAT. SWAT was a new concept in the United States. SWAT teams had only been around for a few years because they were developed in the late 1960s. Now, for LAPD, their SWAT team was started by Chief Daryl Gates, and I don't think he was a chief back then. But there were some significant events that had happened throughout the world that caused law enforcement to look at these situations and realize that we did not possess the weapons and tactics to handle these situations, such as acts of terrorism, rioting, and barricaded suspects. Now, in 1965, we had the original Los Angeles riots. That was one of the events that got us to start thinking differently, but still no SWAT teams yet. In 1966, we had the University of Texas tower shooting where a Marine with a sniper rifle was able to get to the top and started shooting college students. And it wasn't until the heroic acts of two officers that made it up that tower and neutralized that suspect where that event was finally taken care of. And then we had the 1972 Munich massacre where the Olympics in Munich, Israel athletes were taken hostage by a terrorist group and executed. These events are what started the movement towards officers getting special training and tactics and weapons to handle like situations. And that's where SWAT was born out of. So that's the backstory on SWAT. There's a lot more history with it. That's just kind of the overview. We could actually spend the whole entire video just talking about that because SWAT teams evolved throughout the United States from different cities. But LAPD was one of the first cities to incorporate a SWAT team. I also think it was Philadelphia, who might have been even before them, a version of a SWAT team. Now let's get back to the movie. In the movie, we open up with a bank robbery. This bank robbery is a reenactment of the true North Hollywood bank robbery. But in the real story, there was only two suspects. In this, we see multiple suspects. Now, right away, I have some problems with this. I don't know if there's an officer around that would leave cover when you have bad guys shooting assault rifles at them, and we see a couple officers go down. I really can't see that. In the academy, we learn that the round from an assault rifle most likely will go right through our vest. So use the cover that you have. When SWAT finally arrives, which they have that big vehicle that you see in the movie, we finally see the snipers get in place. And what I like is the first sniper finally takes a shot after one of the bad guys jumps inside of a car and the commander says, "Don't let him go mobile."
Do not let them get mobile.
He's down. Snipers have the okay to take out a suspect without my approval. If the suspect is a risk to the public, a risk to officers, or risk to the sniper, they can go ahead and use that force reasonably necessary to neutralize that suspect. In this case, it's an active shooter, so they would shoot them with their sniper rifle. They could have wiped out those suspects right in the front of the bank, but okay, we still need a story. Now, we see Colin Farrell, who plays the character of Street, and Jeremy Renner, who plays Gamble, are partners. And they're entering the bank from the roof. Okay? That's definitely a tactic that can be used because LAPD has helicopters and their officers learn how to fast rope out of helicopters. I learned how to fast rope out of a helicopter. So, yes, we do that. Eventually, though, they're given an order to stand down. And they disobey the order. Or Gamble disobeys the order. Now, I'm going to throw this out. LAPD or any other SWAT team are professionals. We understand the importance of orders. When I give an order to my operators, they know that order is coming based upon intelligence that I may have received. They're not going to disobey that order because they know something may have changed that they don't know about, so they're going to trust that order. So, but we need tension, right? And eventually that order the disobeying of the order leads Gamble to shoot a hostage while trying to neutralize the suspect, which causes him to be thrown off a SWAT.
You disobeyed a direct order. End of story. You're both off SWAT.
Quit the LAPD. Street is cannon fodder, and he's thrown in the cage where he's reduced to shining boots and fixing guns. Yes, we need that. That's how the movie evolves. As the movie's starting to evolve, we need, obviously now we're going to enter we got the highlight, right? Woo, SWAT, bank robbery, dangerous. And then now we need our character development. We see Street still training like he trains now. I will say this. Yes, if you want to be that awesome operator, you need to stay physically in shape. And most SWAT operators do that. Eventually, we enter Samuel L. Jackson as Hondo, old school SWAT. He's been tasked to rebuild an elite team because the luster of the LAPD has been lost and they're losing officers to other departments. It's like, yeah, you have 60 SWAT operators at LAPD. I think they're all elite. You don't need to rebuild anybody. But we need a story, right? We need a backstory. Here's what they got wrong and what's Hollywood. We eventually, during this character development, see them, the SWAT team members at the range, and they're competing with one another. Now, competitions happen all the time.
Move. Steel, let's see some steel, Cardinal, steel. Ah, 5 in a row. Yee, strut it off, baby, strut it off.
Now, in the next scene, we see all the SWAT operators at the range, and they're competing with one another. Competitions have all the time. It's like, I want to be the best shot, and we compete with one another. It keeps us sharp because the part that you don't want to mess up in front of your peers is that level of stress that we kind of like to incorporate in our training. But in this, you see them moving from target to target, and then eventually they do a roll, and I'm like, a roll? I did not learn that one in SWAT school. I don't think LAPD teaches a roll, but it was quite humorous because we see the roll in the later scene when they're back at the range again. So the gear weighs a lot. If you look at my other video, What Do SWAT Operators Wear, which you guys can take a look right there, I put on 60 pounds of gear, I think it was, from just being in my cloth uniform. You're not rolling in this gear. It's just too heavy. We got flashbangs, we got our radio, we got our gas mask. We have all these things that we're going to get hung up on. So yeah, you'd have to slim down your vest to be able to get that roll going. But that was one of the things where you're just like, okay, thanks, Hollywood. As the movie starts to progress, we eventually we have to have our story, right? What is going to be our end here? Well, even though Jeremy Renner's character Gamble is the bad guy, we have another bad guy. We have the international bad guy. And through a series of events, we learn that he's a multi-millionaire, if not billionaire. And after he gets caught and there's a failed rescue attempt on him, he on public TV says, if you rescue me, I will give you whatever millions, $100 million.
I will give $100 million to whoever gets me out of here.
And of course, now we have our backstory. So we see that bad guy. But for the intensive purposes of this storyline, Gamble's truly the bad guy. Okay, so if you were to look at a script, you would see that everything we just talked about is Act 1. We have our opening sequence to grab us. We're introduced to characters we're either going to like or hate. And then we get our backstory of what is going to happen that will eventually be concluded in the final act of the movie. So that's where we're at. Now, in Act 2, we are introduced to Hondo having to now recruit for his team. And that's obvious Street is going to be coming back to the team, but we need to find other players. Hence, LL Cool J's recruited. His character is Deke. We have Rodriguez. Her character is Sanchez. Then we have TJ and Boxer. Those are our what will eventually become our SWAT team. Now, I want to back up on this part. During this part of the movie, I was thoroughly surprised and I enjoyed the fact that the creators of this movie utilized the uniform policy of LAPD. Everyone's in their proper uniform. Nobody has stupid beards and goatees. Mustaches are within regulation. Perfect. The CBS show, SWAT, the main character wearing a goatee, I hate it. It's like, no. But it's Hollywood, right? Because he looks cool. He has to have that goatee. He looks cool. It's like, what about you hire an actor that's willing to not look cool and actually represent the part? That's my beef with the CBS show. But here, perfect. Now, what was neat was when you saw the recruitment, you got to see a cool foot pursuit with LL Cool J. That's pretty right on. I actually enjoyed that one. Now, the only thing I couldn't figure out was when Street did this. What is that going to stop? I don't know. I thought it was quite funny, but okay. So now that we have our SWAT team, our 5-member team, I don't know if that's something that LAPD truly does, because let me give you a backstory on that. My SWAT team is 18 officers, and I need every one of those officers for an operation because you have an inner perimeter, you have an outer perimeter, you have what we call sniper overwatch, we have a medic element. All of those people, we all work together. We're not some separate entity. We all train together. So with that, when you see some of these training scenes as well as when we get some actual scenes where they're doing stuff, you only see the 5. That's the unrealistic part of this. If, like, in one scene we see a mentally ill person taking pop shots with a gun and eventually SWAT's called on their day off, well, let me tell you this much. LAPD, they have people on duty. They didn't need to call them in. But once again, we got to get them involved, right? We got to show them that they're on their days off, they're enjoying their family life, and beep, 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 beep. When it calls, we're there, right? All right, I get it. Now, do we get called in on our days off? Yes. But there's other people on duty right now, too. So with that, though, in that one scene with the mentally ill person, we see this, and there would be other people around. Evacuations would have already been done. Nobody would be on the streets. Houses would have been totally evacuated. On the left of the house, the right of the house, behind the house, in front of the house, all that would have been evacuated. Patrol would have probably done that way before we got there. And then officers would be assigned to the outer perimeter, inner perimeter, and we would just have a crap load of officers on that, not 5 people. That's kind of like the part. Now, going back to the training part, I did like some of the training because when you do train, we train in smaller elements. We may train in 4 or 5 man teams, so that part is realistic. What about this scene, though? You like this? Look familiar? Well, let's see what that... Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have trained in that facility as well. Same place at the LAPD Police Academy, right next to Dodger Stadium. That's where they have their shoot house. So, yeah, same place. When I saw that, I was like, hey, I've trained there. So that was kind of cool. So in this scene, we see that Street is using a torch. We have specific breachers for that. You're not the guy who does everything. We have scouts, we have breachers, obviously we have entry, we have perimeter, we have medics, various different positions within a SWAT team. Now, could you work your way through all those? Yes, you can. But if I need a breacher to use a torch to open up something, breacher up. If I need a ram used, breacher up. So yes, we have people who specifically go to those schools. If I need to put gas inside of a house, my gas guys come up, they do the calculations, and then they deploy the gas inside of the house or the building. So we have specific people who do specific jobs, but it's Hollywood. Street has to look cool, right? Got to get Street to look cool. I love that airplane scene because it's just like, that would take a few hours, or that would take a while to plan. Not going to just plan it within 4 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever they had. So it's kind of funny. We do intelligence gathering, blah, 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 blah. So quite funny. Now, what I like about that is Captain Fooler. Are there Captain Foolers? Yes, there are Captain Foolers everywhere. We have jerks that eventually make it through the ranks and they just become bigger jerks. So is the role of Captain Fooler real? Unfortunately, yes. Have I worked for a Captain Fooler? Yes. So they pass the test and then they're out celebrating. And we eventually see a scene where Gamble's going to re-enter the movie. And Street and Sanchez are sitting in the bar having a beer, and Gamble walks up. Hey. We don't greet each other that way. You look like an idiot. Now, I want to jump back on my high horse about the next part of the movie. So we see our characters. They have been selected. They have gone through their training. They have passed the final obstacle to be included into Metropolitan's Division SWAT team. And now we see them on their much-deserved day off, as Samuel L. Jackson says. LAPD has a 24/7 SWAT team. They have operators on. If something happens, they call them. Now, can they have multiple incidents? Yes. And then they would call people in. But so I'll give Hollywood that. Now, when they do get called in on their day off, they respond to that mentally ill subject I was telling you about. And what I like is that, what are we going to do? And then Street's like, I have an idea. And we're going to use a piece of equipment that we've never used before, that's never been tested, that we've never trained with. No. Special weapons and tactics. That would go against our very motto. We train over and over again. Tactics and the tools and weapons we have get trained with over and over again. If something fails, we train how to overcome that failure. There are no surprises. So they use this ram that goes into the wall, spikes come out, they use a tow truck and blow the wall out, and they go in and get them. That's where Hollywood got that part wrong. Do we have tools that can do something very similar? Yes, we do. We can actually put an explosive charge, bust a hole through there, go in. Yes, we do train like that, but it's stuff that we train with over and over again. There's not going to be like, hey, I got an idea. Unless the idea encompasses weapons we've trained with, equipment we've trained with, we're not going to be doing that. Now, as that situation has come to a resolution and the guy is now going to be taken to the hospital to get help, we hear that we see our bad guy, the multi-millionaire, I want to be released $100 million to anyone that gets me out of here. We see that he's being transported from the sheriff's custody into a bus, which that's realistic. People go to county jail and they get transferred to court. That's totally realistic. But we see that, they finally figure out who he is. And now the sheriff's department's going to request the assistance of LAPD. No. The sheriff's department has 10,000 deputies, and they have their own elite SWAT team. If they're going to call anybody for help, they're going to call their own. But we need our SWAT guys to get there, and, we need a little gun battle, and we need some introduction. We need to mix the stories together.
Hollywood, huh? I'm proud.
So that's what that's all about. Once again, Hollywood takes some liberties on that part of the story. Now, do agencies help each other? Yes, but they're going to look at their own first. As well as when you see the bus, it says it's getting pulled over by a police unit. They've been trained to keep driving, to get verification on who that vehicle is. They understand what can possibly be going on. This is not just some, hey, I'm going to pull over and see what they want. No, they're going to keep driving their route. They're police officers. They're in a police vehicle. It's a bus, but it's a police vehicle. So they're going to still keep going. They're not going to just pull over. A little trivia moment. When the suspect is taken into custody after the gun battle, he's laying on a Hollywood star at the Walk of Fame, and it says Alex Trebek. At that right moment, there's a reporter reporting about the events that just happened. Well, that's actually Alex Trebek's voice. So it was kind of neat. They threw him on the star. They actually used Alex Trebek. If you don't know who Alex Trebek is, he is Jeopardy.
And members of LAPD's elite SWAT unit. Details.
That Alex Trebek. So it's his voice. It's kind of like a cool little, like if you don't recognize it or you just like, wait a minute, is that Alex Trebek's voice? And then you got to really take a look at the star as they lift him up. I caught that. Did you? Now the movie starts to evolve. Now we're going to get back into some action. Our second bad guy has made the announcement that if anyone frees him, he will give $100 million. And then we see that is broadcast all over international networks. And then we start to see various gang types saying, hey, that sounds good to me, right? So now we can only think about that people are going to take this guy up on an offer. I don't know if that would even be something that would be realistic or a realistic scenario. I don't see a bunch of gang members and criminal element all combining together to try to take this guy or try to get this guy out of jail, even during transport. That seems very Hollywoodish. I mean, we've had some high profile people. No one's ever tried to get them out, but okay, we need a story. Now the story starts to evolve. We see they're going to transport him out via helicopter, and yeah, that would seem like the best bet, right? Let's get them the heck out of there. They're going to transport him to a federal facility in the desert. That federal facility does really exist out in San Bernardino. So we see them attempt to do that. Now, what I do like about this part of the movie is the very fact that they have Overwatch, which are the people on the various different building tops, taking a look at what's going on. Those tactics seem very sound and very realistic. In fact, I would probably venture to say that this production hired real SWAT operators to do those parts because those parts look pretty legit. But then we see the helicopter get shot.
Cover! We've been hit! We've been hit! Shots fired.
Now, by a .50 caliber, it's perceived probably from a mile away. I'm going to probably say that I'm sure that there's some type of rifle sniper technology that can do that. I'm not aware personally of any, but we see that now they got to come up with Plan B. And Plan B is where we get to see a little bit more action and a little bit of this unrealistic part of Hollywood's take on this. So let's take a quick little look at that. Us, the viewers, are given a little bit of action where we see all these gang members come together to take out the LAPD SWAT team in hopes of rescuing our billionaire terrorist guy. And it's quite comical because, number one, they wouldn't know the route that we were taking. Number two, because they don't know the route, they wouldn't be able to box us in. As a matter of fact, most likely there would be air support, so air support would already be overhead, and if they saw something that didn't look right, they would have notified the operators on the ground. And then you see the weaponry of the bad guys. Not to say that they don't have access to automatic weapons, because they do, but Laws, rockets, and RPGs, maybe, but if they had them, why aren't they using them now, type of things. What are they waiting for? So, but then again, too, you got to take a look. In this particular scene, we see some people who are confronting the LAPD right away. Well, these people are going to die. They're going to be the first ones that are going to get shot. So who volunteers for that? I mean, yeah, maybe this guy's going to give $100 million, but you got to be alive to collect $100 million. And if you're the guy who's right in front shooting at the LAPD cop cars, well, what's going to eventually happen? You're going to get shot. As we see, these guys are all eventually taken down. So, yeah, most of our bad guys are smart enough to know they're going to get caught. They're going to get killed or going to get caught if they're shooting at the cops. So, but we need a good story. While all this is going on, Hondo, because he's, been thinking about this, has taken our bad guy through the underground tunnels of Los Angeles, and they're evacuating him out that way. But we see a twist. You see how Hondo looked? Hondo knows something is up, right? Unfortunately, we are eventually going to find out that TJ betrayed the team and he gave Gamble, Renner's character, the route that they were taking so Renner could go ahead and free our bad guy. And that's where the movie takes us. And we get to see now the pursuit because we can't let Gamble and the bad guy get taken away.
Hands where I can see him, guys. Come on.
TJ, what the hell are you doing?
What the hell does it look like I'm doing? I'm taking Frenchie here up on his offer.
So Samuel L. Jackson's premonition of TJ plays out as TJ betrays his team and Boxer ends up getting shot by Gamble. And then we have our bad guy getting away with both TJ and Gamble. And they go into the MTA station, take a train, end up in the sewers of Los Angeles, and eventually they're in some vehicles and they make it to the 6th Street Bridge, which is a very iconic bridge in Los Angeles. And we see now that they're going to escape via a Learjet landing on the bridge. Now, let me say this much. I have a friend who's a pilot. And he has flown such a plane as we see in the movie. He lands in Upland and at Cable Airport. He says he begins his planning to land at Cable Airport on an actual runway somewhere over Palm Springs, which is hundreds of miles away. Over 100 plus miles away. Here we see these pilots planning their escape within a mile or two of the actual 6th Street Bridge. So a little unrealistic. I'm sure some pilots that had watched this movie are like, yeah, that's not going to happen. A helicopter maybe would have been better. But yeah, so we get to see that unrealistic part of the plane coming down and landing on the bridge. The movie comes to an end. We finally see... not going to I mean, is it really a spoiler alert? I mean, the movie came out in 2003, right? Well, we see that Hondo is able to disable the airplane. They catch the second bad guy. Because remember, Gamble's the true antagonist of this movie. So Street and Gamble need to have that mano-on-mano fight, right? And we get to see that. And eventually, Street wins. Of course he wins, right? This is SWAT. This is going to be one of those Hollywood happy ending stories. And then everyone's back on the 6th Street Bridge. And we still have bad guy number 2 that needs to be in federal prison. And now everyone's like, road trip. Well, we got Sanchez has been shot. Let's see. Street has been stabbed. TJ, I don't think TJ got hurt. And then, of course, now Boxer's out of the picture because he's in stable condition at LA County USC Hospital. But it's only them. And it's just like, there's nobody else who hasn't been injured that can maybe transport this guy. So once again, they would all be going to the hospital. You got stab wound in your hand. Those are the parts that I get. I don't know if audience pick up on that stuff. It's like, yeah, this is all we have left at the LAPD to take the prisoner to the high desert.
Remind me to buy some shares in Kevlar.
Good work, Sanchez.
This last scene. So just as you know, as our diesel is driving away, we see the driver say, "Where to, boys?" That is actually the original Hondo from the 1970s SWAT TV series. So kind of cool. They brought him back for that quick little cameo.
Where to, boys?
But what's funny is robbery goes out in Los Angeles, and they're like, well, let's respond. They're in the high desert. They're like 60 miles away from downtown Los Angeles. And even if they were going to respond, they start getting their weapons ready. Like, you're not going to have a chance to get your weapons ready for the next 2 hours. So just kind of a funny way the movie ends. Yeah, that's Hollywood, ladies and gentlemen. What can we say? So overall opinion, I kind of came up with my own tomato meter. It's kind of the badge meter. 5 being the most badges that I would give any category. So category action, I'm going to give it 4.5 badges. I think that action-wise, it was, action fun-wise, it was a fun movie to watch. If you have no idea about SWAT or police work, it works for you. So even though I have a police background, obviously SWAT background, it was still fun and there was still some action. Realism, I'm only going to give it 3, and I'm being generous. Some of the stuff, good stuff. The good tactics, the way they made LAPD look very pristine, love that. But I'm still trying to wrap my head around the whole 5-team element thing. Maybe that is a thing with LAPD. I doubt it though, because I thought they had 4 15-man teams for a total of 60 SWAT operators. Could have changed on me. So, but yeah, that's where I'm at. And overall, just movie overall, 3.5. 3.5 badges. Maybe one day in the future, I'll be able to have my little badges go across the screen when I get better at doing some graphic stuff. But right now, you're just going to have to take my voice badge rating. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I really enjoy talking about the movie SWAT, showing you a couple of clips from it. Obviously, you can't go like deep into clips because then it'll do a copyright infringement with YouTube and then blah, 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 right? You don't want those strikes. You just don't want those strikes. But I would suggest, yes, watch the movie if you've never seen it before. But even better yet, watch the 1970s version. Now, you want to talk about bad? Yeah, that was bad, but it was 1970s, right? So it was just what it was, right? Thanks for watching. This is Chris the Cop. Take care of yourself. Take care of one another. And I look forward to our next movie review, which I think is going to be End of Watch. And I truly love that movie. Thanks for watching.